Today I'll be working in my workbook called Opening the Curtain into the Psalms. We have one last psalm in this workbook before we go to the next one. So looking at the table of contents, we're going to be working on the Lord, a fortress in adversity, Psalm 31. Now, none of these psalms were created with titles. These titles I had obtained through King James, New King James. And it's better than just having Psalm 22, 23, 24. So I accepted them for their titles, but they did not originally were not made with these titles. If this was the first psalm in the series, I'd go over this. But since it is not, if you want to stop the recording to read this, you may, of course. You can do that any time. I don't need my permission. You can read this, a general study on the Psalms, separating the Psalms into groups, musical nature of the Psalms, and the poetic features of the Psalms. We talk about these as we go through the Psalms themselves. So now let's get to the last Psalm of the book. Looks like this one. Psalm 31, the Lord, a fortress in adversity. For the director of music, the Psalm of David. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me. Come quickly to my rescue. Be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me. Since you are my rock and my fortress, for the sake of your name, lead and guide me. Keep me free from the trap that is set for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. I hate those who cling to worthless idols. As for me, I trust in the Lord. I'll be glad and rejoice in your love, for you saw my affliction and knew the anguish of my soul. You have not given me into the hands of the enemy, but have set my feet in a spacious place. Be merciful to me, Lord, for I am in distress. My eyes grow weak with sorrow, my soul and body with grief. My body is consumed by anguish and my years by groaning. My strength fails because of my affliction and my bones grow weak. Because of all my enemies, I'm in the utter contempt of my neighbors and an object of dread to my closest friends. Those who see me on the street flee from me. I am forgotten as though I was dead. I've become like broken pottery. For I hear many whispering terror on every side. They conspire against me and plot to take my life. But I trust in you, Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hands. Deliver me from the hands of my enemies, from those who pursue me. Let your face shine on your servant and save me in your unfailing love. Let me not be put to shame, Lord, for I have cried out to you. And let the wicked be put to shame and be silent in the realm of the dead. Let their lying lips be silenced, for with pride and contempt they speak arrogantly against the righteous. How abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you, that you bestow in the sight of all, on those who take refuge in you. In the shelter of your presence, you hide them from all human intrigues. You keep them safe in your dwelling from accusing tongues. Praise be to the Lord, for he showed me the wonders of his love when I was in a city under siege. In my alarm, I say, I am cut off from your sight, yet you heard my cry for mercy when I called to you for help. Love the Lord, all his faithful people. The Lord preserves those who are true to him, but the proud he pays back in full. Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord. So, like all the Psalms, I give you a general commentary before we deep dive into the Psalms. There are multiple different types of commentators to the Psalms, and each of them kind of give you a different viewpoint. I've just selected a sampling of those, and I've also found a couple people who talk about when they think this psalm was written, and I find that fascinating too, so I've included those. This psalm is part of the first book of Psalms, Psalms 1 through 41. The NIV Study Bible states that Psalm 31 is an appeal against false accusers. It is part of a group of Psalms 25 to 33 that share common themes of pleas for mercy, professions of trust, and celebrations of God's unfailing love. According to Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown, Psalm 31 is a devotional expressive of trust and trouble. According to J. Vernon McGee, Psalm 31 is a prayer of deliverance from trouble. Historically, since David doesn't specifically tell us when it was written, Bible scholars can disagree. For Psalm 31, the Blue Letter Bible believes this was written on David's persecution by Saul at or near 1 Samuel 23:12, when God tells him that the citizens of Keilah will surrender him to Saul. The Nelson Chronological Bible has it written by David after he takes the census of Israel and Judah without getting the Lord's approval beforehand. In the psalm, David talks about being in a city under siege. This would refer to Keilah, which would favor the Blue Letter Bible belief. Part of the subheading that was given with this psalm is for the director of music. From this, we know that David wrote the psalm to the choir master, director of music, which is also interchangeable with the chief musician. In David's time, this would either be Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman. Asaph was a prominent Levite, a worship leader, and a musician in the court. He composed or co-authored several psalms. Jeduthun, also known as Ethan, was also a prominent Levite and magician. Heman, the Ezrahite, was a Levite seer, songwriter, and magician. He also wrote a psalm. All these were at one time considered the choir master or chief musician. The second part of the heading is a Psalm of David. Although the word that translates as of could mean about and not by, which would mean that someone else wrote it about David or like him in style, most Bible scholars agree that this psalm appears to be written by David. Psalm 31 is a complex psalm bouncing back and forth from plea to lament to trust and praise. Section 1 is The Lord is my rock and fortress, verses 1 through 4. The second section is I trust in the Lord, verses 5 through 8. The third section is My body is failing me, verses 9 through 10. The fourth section is My enemies conspire against me, verses 11 through 13. The fifth section is Renewed trust in the Lord, verses 14 and 16. The sixth section is Shame my enemies, not me, Lord, verses 17 through 18. And the seventh section is The people in his refuge, verses 19 and 20. And in the eighth section, David was in city under siege, verses 21 to 22. Lastly, the concluding section, Love the Lord, all you faithful people, verses 23 and 24. Notice sections 1 and 7 are similar, as well as sections 2 and 5. Sorry about that. my binder just came off the table. You can say that sections 4 and 8 are also similar. So sorry about that. Woke me up too. All right. So, section 1, The Lord is my rock and my fortress, verses 1 through 4. In verses 1 through 4, notice the synonymous parallelism, which is saying the same thing different ways. I have taken refuge, my rock of refuge, a strong fortress. You are my rock and my fortress. You are my refuge. Several times in this psalm, we see imminent danger David feels he is in. In these verses, we read, Deliver me in your righteousness. Come quickly to my rescue. A strong fortress to save me. Keep me free from the trap that is set for me. Notice the past tense statements. I have taken refuge. Since you are my rock and my fortress. Basically, in these verses, David is saying, Lord, since you are already my rock and fortress, then lead and guide me away from the traps my enemies have set for me. Section 2, I trust in the Lord, verses 5 through 8. In these verses, we have many connections to the first 4 verses. In verse 5, we have the words deliver me. Which verse 1 through 4 is that phrase also used? Verse 1. What verse in verses 1 through 4 is another way of saying, you have not given me into the hands of the enemy, but have set my feet in a spacious place? Keep me free from the trap that's set for me, for you are my refuge. Of course, we have the most famous line of the whole psalm, the first part of verse 5. Looking at the verse from Luke below, when did Jesus say this line? Luke 23, 44, 46. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, for the sun stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, unto your hands I commit my spirit. And when he said this, he breathed his last. He said it on the cross. Again, David uses past and present tense to help us understand what he's saying. What is he saying in past tense? We're looking from verse 5 through 8. For you saw my affliction. You knew the anguish of my soul. You have not given me into the hands of the enemy. Because the Lord saw his affliction and knew his anguish and protected David from the hands of the enemy, David then does what? Into the Lord I commit his spirit. Into the Lord's hands I commit my spirit, David's spirit. I commit his spirit. Okay. I trust in the Lord. I will be glad and rejoice in your love. Section 3, my body is failing me, verses 9 through 10. Now we come to verses of complete physical anguish. There are a number of Psalms that give us an indication of the physical anguish David suffered in his life. Read Psalm 6, 6, 7, Psalms 22, 14, 15, and Psalm 38, 3 through 11. David experienced illnesses and extreme emotional distress. He describes his suffering through physical symptoms in the Psalms, such as bones wasted away through my anguished roaring, and no soundness in my body because of your anger, which led to chronic pain, weakness, and sleepless nights. What are the physical conditions of David's distress? 9 and 10. My eyes grow weak in sorrow, my soul and body with grief. My life is consumed by anguish, my ears by groaning, my strength fails because of my affliction, my bones grow weak. Due to all these conditions, what does David want from the Lord in verse 9? For the Lord to be merciful to him. So section 4, my enemies conspire against me, 11 through 13. In these verses, David gives us a picture of what's going on in his life. I am the utter contempt of my neighbors. I am the object of dread to my close friends. Those who see me on the street, flee from me. I hear many whispering, terror on every side. They conspire against me and plot to take my life. Why are all these things happening? First part of verse 11. Because of all his enemies. David uses simile or using like to compare one thing to another. In verse 12, what does he say that is a simile? I become like broken pottery. These verses fit nicely with the story about Keilah. Keilah. Okay. 1 Samuel 23, 7 through 13. Saul was told that David had gone to Keilah, and he said, God has delivered him into my hands, for David has imprisoned himself by entering the town with gates and bars. And Saul called up all his forces for battle to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. When David learned that Saul was plotting against him, he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring the ephod. David said, Lord God of Israel, your servant has heard definitely that Saul plans to come to Keilah and destroy the town on account of me. Will the citizens of Keilah surrender me to him? Will Saul come down as your servant has heard? Lord God of Israel, tell your servant. And the servant said, He will. Again, David asked, Will the citizens of Keilah surrender me, my men, to Saul? And the Lord said, They will. So David and his men, about 600 in number, left Keilah and kept moving from place to place. The phrase terror on every side is interesting biblically. This phrase is used by the prophet Jeremiah numerous times in his writing related to Jerusalem and other countries falling to Babylon. Perhaps David is using his role as prophet here. So then our next section is renewed trust in the Lord, verses 14 through 16. This section has a lot of similarities to section 2. In verse 14, David says, I trust in you, Lord. What verse in section 2 does he use nearly the same words? Okay, let's go over here. I'm not sure what section 2 is, but it would be after section 3. Let's see. So he says, I trust in you, Lord. I trust in the Lord. Verse 6. In verse 14, David says, You are my God. What verse in section 2 does he use nearly the same words? Okay. Lord, my faithful God. Okay. In verse 15, David uses the words in your hands. What verse in section 2 does he use the same words? Okay, he says in your hands in section 2. Into your hands in verse 5. In verse 15, David uses the words deliver me. What verse in section 2 does he use the same words? Deliver me, Lord, verse 5. In verse 15, David uses the words hands of my enemies. What verse in section 2 does he use nearly the same words? In the hands of the enemy, verse 8. In verse 16, David uses the word your unfailing love. What verse in section 2 does he use the same phrase? Maybe rejoice in your love? Your unfailing love. Let's see. Maybe that's what I meant. Okay. In verses 14 through 16, because David trusts God, he asks for 3 things. Deliver me from the hands of my enemies. Deliver me from those who, I gotta move this just a little bit. Maybe even more. Deliver me from those who pursue me. Let your face shine on your servant. Save me in your unfailing love. Section 6, shame my enemies, not me, Lord. Verses 17 and 18. The first part of verse 17 connects back to the second part of verse 1. What are the same words used? Let me never be put to shame. Let me not be put to shame, Lord. In verse 17, David doesn't want the Lord to put him to shame, but who to shame? The wicked be put to shame. Why do the wicked need to have their lying lips silenced? For pride and contempt, they speak arrogantly against the righteous. How are they going to be silenced? Let's see. I guess in the realm of the dead, I guess. How are they going to be silenced? By getting to the realm of the dead. Section 7, the people in his refuge, verses 19 and 20. In the first section, David is talking about taking refuge in the Lord. Now, in this section, he talks about people who take refuge in the Lord. David uses synonymous parallelism, which is using synonyms of a word in this section. What are the other two words in verse 20 that are a synonym of refuge? Shelter, dwelling. For those who take refuge in the Lord, David makes these observations. How abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you. You hide them from all human intrigues. You keep them safe in your dwelling from accusing tongues. Notice that the first part of verse 20 and the second part of verse 20 are synonymically parallel. Section 8, David was in a city under siege, verses 21 to 22. Section 8 is like a section 4, verses 11 through 13, because they both talk about what is happening around David. Actually, section 4 is a prayer for help, and section 8 is an answer to that prayer. David wants to praise the Lord in verse 21. Why? For he showed me the wonders of his love when I was in a city under siege. While he was in a city under siege, what did David feel in the first part of verse 22? He was alarmed. Did the Lord hear David's cry for mercy? Yes. Section 9. Love the Lord, all you faithful people, verses 23 and 24. If the faithful people who hope in the Lord are strong and take heart, what will the Lord do for them? It preserves them. Yet to the proud, what does the Lord do according to verse 23? He pays back in full. So what touches me most about this psalm? Well, I think verse 19, how abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you. How does the psalm live on? Verse 5 is quoted by Jesus in Luke 23:46 and by Stevens in Acts 7:59. Verses 1 through 3 are the first three verses in Psalm 71. As mentioned in the text, Jeremiah uses the phrase terror on every side many times in both the book of Jeremiah and in Lamentations. The Jews use Psalm 31 for prayer and supplication, incorporating it into daily liturgy, like the evening prayer and bedtime Shema, and using specific verses in various contexts, such as after leaving that one, Misanoyet, for a deceased person or a prayer for a sick individual. The psalm is recited individually and collectively to express trust in God, especially during times of crisis, or to offer praise and thanksgiving. Various songs have been made from Psalm 31. My times are in your hands. In you, O Lord, I put my trust. In his hands. Psalm 31. Psalm 31, you are my refuge. Be strong and take heart. So those are some songs, and it says the authors there. So that's the end of this psalm. and the end of this book. And so I hope that you will continue in our series about the Psalms. Thank you. Bye now.